Counting the
cost of being a lifelong learner and pursuing purpose.
wow, that's a big name. The title of this episode. And I'm looking forward to hearing your experience as a lifelong learner, lifelong student of passion and meaning. So the first question I had that I still haven't heard from you, even though did hear it from your mom because I was your student, I was your mom's student, is
Yeah.
why did you start saying hi to strangers?
All right. Well, that's a good question. My wife has also asked me that question a couple of times. Say hello to strangers. And she said, "Do you know that person?" Like, no, I don't know. So why do I say hello to strangers? Um, for one, I was born in U.S. I was born in Louisiana, and Louisianans believe in being friendly to people.
What did you say?
Louisianans or people from Louisiana in the state, they believe in being friendly to others.
Oh, okay, they're friendly.
So
okay.
It has a reputation of being the friendliest of all states in the U.S.
Oh, really?
It really does. It has that reputation. But I'm not going to say that that's the only reason why I say hello to strangers. I think there's two reasons why. One is that when I go someplace, when I do something, especially when I go to a new place, I want to feel welcome. I want to feel like I belong, like I'm not an invisible individual. And so, one way in order to help people to feel like they're not invisible, that they are noticeable, is to acknowledge them by saying hello. And when you say hello, it makes someone's day. I love seeing a person's face brighten up, lighten up, and a smile creep over it. I love seeing people having a better day because of something I can be able to do for them. And it doesn't take much time. It doesn't cost any money. It's simply it's a smile. It takes a second of my time. For the second of my time to make a world of a difference. If I might say one more thing, when I was a university student, I heard a story over the radio that really deeply influenced me. And this is like, I'm talking about a long time ago. Not to say I'm really aged and old, but I heard a story over the radio. And it was a guy who was in his home, and he had a gun pointed to his head, you know. And he was about to pull the trigger and commit suicide because he felt like no one cared about him in his world, in his life. And just as he was about to pull that trigger, he paused for one moment. Because the truth is that even though he felt like no one cared, he still wanted life. And so he paused for a moment and he thought to himself, I'm gonna put this gun down, I'm gonna walk in my neighborhood for 1 hour, just 1 hour. And if someone, anyone, greets me, befriends me, is kind to me, then I won't consider going back home and killing myself. So the man, he put his gun in his drawer, he proceeded out his door, and he began walking in the neighborhood. Now the speaker stopped there, and the speaker never finished the course of this man's story. But that story made me think to myself, if that man were walking in my neighborhood, and I were walking in the same neighborhood, would I have been the one who had greeted him, or would I have been so consumed in my own stuff that I would not have paid any attention to him? When I got that message and that started me as a freshman in university, I prayed and I asked God at that time, give me a smile and give me something to smile about. And so I think everyone deserves to have a better life and to get a little happiness. And if I can be a part of that with a smile, I'm happy to be a part of that. So that's a long question, long answer to the question, but that's pretty much why I smile.
Wow. I did hear that from your mom. And I did hear the person that wanted to commit a suicide part. And I didn't know the speaker never finished the story. Your mom said the person didn't commit a suicide because somebody said hi. So I guess there was a little bit of change there, but I think the gist of it was that person was so lonely that he didn't find meaning in life and he wanted somebody to acknowledge him, and that's why you began to acknowledge people to brighten their life by simple things that you can do. So,
right.
So how many years ago was that?
That was about 20 years ago.
Wow.
20 years ago, I heard that story.
So it was through the radio. It wasn't your actual first-hand experience.
Correct. That was through the radio, but that's another story. But a few years later from that time, I did meet a suicidal person.
Really?
Yes, I met a person who was suicidal in a subway the night before Christmas, and I had the opportunity to speak with him, and he chose not to commit suicide because of our conversation that night.
Oh,
I, that's another story.
that's
But,
weird.
but I
Weird.
did meet someone.
That's where your mom's input came from. So she didn't change the story. It's a one story that took place in two different times.
Correct.
Now
Yes.
now I see a bigger picture here.
Yes.
Wow, that's awesome. Because I was going to Language Institute in 2005 when I was a freshman in college. I went there every morning and I learned from you there. And I went to university as an English major, and your mom was there. And
Yes.
it's pretty crazy how I learned from both of you as a student, and it's great to hear that this story actually made an impact, and it didn't end as a story. It actually saved somebody's life from
right.
from his suicide. Wow, so
Right.
that's unbelievable. So how long did you guys have that conversation with him?
Wow. With that suicidal individual?
Yeah.
That was okay. That was on a train going home. The conversation may have been for 15 minutes or so.
Wow.
It wasn't very long. And matter of fact, I didn't learn till later. I got the guy's name after our conversation. He formerly was a very popular musician and artist.
Really?
Back in the 60s and 70s. I mean, he had albums all over the place. His group. I mean, he had records. Everybody knew of this guy, along with the guys he was with. And so they had lots of songs out there. But he just got down on his luck. Things just weren't going well with him. And when he got on the train, after saying Merry Christmas to everyone, he sat down right behind me. He started crying, and everything in me said, "You got to talk to that guy." Even though it was not the cultural thing to do to talk with strangers, I felt that it was necessary, and so I turned around and engaged a conversation with the guy. And he was, of course, my senior, maybe about 3 decades older than me, closer to my mom's age. But as we began to speak, and I listened to his story, I listened to his life, I was able to also share with him some things I had recently learned also for myself, even earlier that a day or two before this. And I began to share with him some insight and some encouragement. And then as we got off at the train stop on the same stop, um, he told me there, he said, I was about to commit suicide tonight. And if it were not for you talking to me tonight, I would have done that. So I thank you so much for talking with me. And I collected his phone number, called him Christmas Day, the following day. He was there with his grandchildren and his children, and he was just having a really great time. And I was just so honored that I was in the right place at the right time to make an impact in this guy's life, care enough to be able to see me and just to talk with him and to listen to his story. And so, he lived another day. And I'm thankful for the opportunity. It was a privilege and a blessing.
Wow, that's unbelievable. So this was a grandpa that could have
That's
killed
right.
himself before his family gathering.
That's right.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. So they had a wonderful family gathering because this guy decided to live, not to die.
That's right.
Because of your 15-minute interaction at the train.
That's right.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. So how many years later after you heard that program from the radio, do you think you can remember? Just approximately?
From the time that I met this guy?
Yeah.
That was probably...
I mean, like from your first listening to that radio about the greeting, the power of greeting, and then meeting this guy.
I would say somewhere between 3 or 4 years.
Wow. So for 3 and over 4 years, you've been saying hi to people, talking to strangers, and then this was the experience that you had.
That's right.
Wow. So it actually became your story.
Yes, in many ways. That's right.
Wow, that's crazy. Actually, I mean, I'm not as intense as you are, but I do say hi to people that live in the same apartment building. I have like 25 4-story floor in this building where I live, and I do say hi to people, especially in the elevator or especially in the hallway or parking lot. So I guess the pickup that the habit that I picked up, as I witnessed, what you were doing, is still brightening, my interaction with my neighbors. So I guess in that aspect, you also made an impact in my life because I do make friends with people, and some of them even became my students. Their children, and I enjoy making friends with people. So I think my life in the apartment complex is a lot happier because of this amazing habit that I picked up. Talking to strangers, making friends with strangers, and I was able to make a lot of connections. So I'm very thankful that you did that for me when I was in my early 20s. And I think you were in your late 20s at the time, right? When I first met you?
Yeah.
Mid 20? Late 20?
Yes, like mid 20s, mid 20s.
Oh,
Yeah.
mid 20. Okay, we were not too far apart then, like a few years.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so you had a habit going, and then so how did you decide to become an English teacher in the first place?
Wow, wow. And everyone's story is so uniquely different too, right? Um, I was getting ready to graduate from my university, and I was just anxious to go out abroad and do something for one. It was never my intention to become an English teacher. Let me say that first. I wasn't planning on being I was very frightened of the idea of being an English teacher because English was not the subject I excelled in school. However, I did go to school to become a teacher, a high school secondary teacher, but my subject or my area was not English. Um, so honestly, when I graduated from university, I was still a little confused about what I should do with life. And some people feel that way. They graduate to something or they already have a job. They still like feel like I'm not really where I should be, or I don't feel like this is really meant for me. So I wasn't really sure if teaching really was for me. I had some other questions. So I decided to go on a trip. It was a trip where it was called like a missionary trip type thing. So I did teach English. I taught Bible. I got a chance to come to Korea with foreign teachers from all over the world. And I just figured that maybe a year in Korea teaching might give me some clarity as to what I should do next, and I can continue on with life. So I'm looking for that experience, and I love traveling anyhow. So I was hoping that maybe I can know how families can cope in a foreign country working together. And so that's kind of how I started out in Korea. Recent grad from university, just wanted to know what was going on in my life. Wanted some time just to be able to evaluate clearly what was the next step, and I was led to South Korea.
Wow, that's crazy. So you're still figuring out what to do for the future, and then I think you ended up teaching for how many years? Many years, right?
So yeah, quite a number of years. So I taught there for 2 years, and then I left, and I returned again. I taught for another 5 years, so total of 7 years.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's a lot of years.
yeah.
Yeah, I
You know,
noticed. Yeah, I noticed that you're always happy and you're very lovely and friendly, and yeah, you're one of those people that I always wonder what's going on in that guy's life. Like, what's in his brain that he's always like happy. And I was so were you always so friendly all your life, or was there a transition in your life?
Definitely transition. I've traveled a lot in my life. I've had to move. I attended 4 different schools by the time I graduated from high school, and 4 of those schools were in 3 different states in the U.S. And so I was like all over the place. So growing up, I was a very shy kid. But having traveled a lot of places, having to move to different schools because my mom's work opportunities were changing, uh, I got an idea of what it meant to go to a place and feel welcome.
Oh, I
There
see.
was one school that I went to, and I was so excited about going there. And like, these people are gonna be so nice because I met one guy there. He's like super nice. He graduated from the high school I attended before. So I was excited when I got there. Like only 1 or 2 people in the whole school said hi to me, and I was like, I was kind of disappointed, honestly. I was really disappointed because my expectations were already up here, and then so few people actually said hello. So I made up my mind that year, grade 11 in high school. I said, you know what? I'm gonna I'm going to go out of the way, even though I'm shy, to make people feel welcome, especially the new people and the young people. And so that's what I did. And so it started in grade 11, grade 12, and then by the time I got to my first year in university, my best friend and I, who we went to high school together, we were very ambitious. Our first year in university, we said we're going to meet 20 new people every day.
Wow.
I don't know how we came up with the idea.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, because as my brother, he'll tell you that I never talked to the kid. But it's just what provoked me is just that people need to feel welcome. People need to feel like there's somebody. No one should be walking around as if they're invisible. We are supposed to be a community, and so that 20 people every day, we're gonna do it, and that's what my best friend and I did. Every day we set out to meet 20 new people, and by the end of my first year at university, I looked in the yearbook and I counted how many people I had any interaction with, I had some kind of conversation with. I kind of over 300 students.
Wow.
Well over 300 students I was able to meet my first year, and that was cool. And so that was kind of the driving force, and just seeing the impact of basic friendship, courtesy, kindness, uh, going out the way, the impact that can make on other people's lives by understanding what it makes on my life. And so that's kind of what drove me to do that.
Wow, that's a super cool experience. So you felt left out, you felt rejected, you felt not welcome whenever you travel to different places as a student, and then you felt that need, and you decided to fill that need, meet that need that the community, whatever you went, had, and then you began to fulfill that, especially when you went to university, you were making friends with people, 20 people a day, and then you ended up almost being able to talk to the whole school. Wow, that's crazy. So when you teach, you don't always teach nice people. Some students are very difficult. And do you think your experience of greeting strangers helped you when you were teaching difficult people?
Okay. Yes. This my daughter's here too. Yeah. This right over here, Ellie. You can put it there, please. All right. So I'm sorry, Kim. Would you repeat that question?
Oh, so the question was, when you teach, you don't always teach the kindest, the most loving, friendly people. Some students are very depressed. Some students can be very difficult. Some students can be very unkind. And so, did your experience of greeting strangers, making friends with strangers, helped you when you were teaching English?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I definitely would say so. And I want to say this on record: you weren't one of those students who gave me a hard time.
Yeah.
Easy student to work with.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that anytime we interact with people, the way that we see life and our views and our values, our beliefs, they just kind of expand. You just imagine like blowing into a balloon, air in a balloon. Every person you meet and every story that you hear and learn about, when you can see life as they see it, it's just expanding the way you see life. I mean, it's like school. School is connecting with new people and understanding and identifying where they come from. So yes, the people that I've met in my past and being able to try to relate to people, and as I talk with people, I realize that hey, they look so different from me, but as I talk with them, I realize that we do have things in common.
Yeah.
I remember going to a juvenile detention center in college and visiting there like twice every month, and going over the weekend and talking with young guys who found themselves in prison, right? Under 18 years of age. And I was scared the first time I went there. I'm like, man, like they got here for different reasons, but they should. I mean, these are bad guys. I'm thinking. I'm like, am I safe to go to a detention center? But the more I talked with them, and the more I heard some of their stories, I realized there wasn't anything to be afraid of. I mean, I started seeing them as a person and not as a criminal or an inmate. And so all those experiences, yes, when it gets to be a teaching, yeah, there's some kids who are hard. They're difficult to deal with. And yes, I had some difficult times too with some students. but it's just trying to see the person for who they are and realize that there are different sides to people. And when people react or respond in negative ways, there's something that's driving them to behave that way. My job is to try to understand that and try to help them where they are. And if I can't understand that, I just have to try to believe the best and try to meet them where they are. But instead of pointing fingers to them and saying they're the problem, ask questions and try to give them the benefit of the doubt that they want what's best, but maybe they need some help to get there. So what I have learned is that uh, difficult people and difficult relationships are great opportunities for us to develop as people. We shouldn't run away from difficult experiences. We shouldn't run away from difficult people. Uh, they are, in many ways, like blessings in disguises, opportunities for us to become developed as a better person and knowing how to express more love, kindness, concern, compassion those we meet.
Wow, that's crazy how I met you as a teacher and now I'm teaching English and I'm sharing my experience and going through difficult times because um I mean I have quite a number of students and sometimes I feel like yeah, I have arrived, the things are going great and all of a sudden things begin to like break down and one kid is over here, another kid is over there and every day I face different challenges. I thought I fixed the problem with this kid, and this week is the other kid, and then so I guess your perspective is pretty much every difficult challenges I face with my students is the revelation of my weakness, so I can grow into a better person to have larger capacity to love that person, so that person
That's
can
right.
have an opportunity to learn something new in their life. So you frame this interview as lifelong learner. So what do you think you are actually trying to learn as a student of life as a greeter to strangers and as an English teacher?
Wow, that's loaded. What is that I think that I'm trying to learn in life? And I think there's so much. And first of all, I'm going to say that I don't know.
Okay.
I'm going to admit that there's a lot of things about life and a lot of things about myself that I don't know that I need to know, and that only time will tell.
Mm.
Um, I'm going to admit that I'm on a journey, but I don't know exactly how that journey leads all the time.
Okay.
But what I do believe is this: is that um, when I think of the goal of my life, um, and the way I treat people and what I do when it comes to profession and career, I think that there's been no greater person that's ever walked this world, walked this planet that I admire so much. And there's a lot of people I admire, right? Gandhi, Martin Luther King. These are some fascinating, incredible people. Even Abraham Lincoln. I mean, some really great people out there. But I really am inspired by the life of Jesus and the way that he interacts with people, his integrity, his strength, and yet his character of love. And if I can model him a lot more, then I'll be very happy with that. Um, because every person he come in contact with essentially uh, became a lot better in many ways. Uh, he brought hope and encouragement to people around him. But that comes through self-realization of who I am, so I know I can be able to help others. If I'm trying to live my life uh, uh, by trying to make myself more important and just get a name for me, then I'm still focused on myself. And so my goal in life really should not be so much, yes, I do want to develop my character, but for what purpose? I do want to go for what purpose? Uh, for the purpose that I can be one of the greatest servants in the world that I can be.
Wow.
That I can leave a legacy that will make a meaningful impact in people's lives. And if I can live that way, if I can live that life, then I can go to my grave with peace, with contentment, with satisfaction, with happiness, because I know that my life has not been lived in vain.
Wow. So so I think you talked a lot about humility. You talked a lot about serving others. The shift is not here. The shift is other people. So wow, that's very that I think that really makes people relaxed. The fact that I don't have to always preserve my pride. I don't always have to want people to uh, maintain my dignity. The fact that I can become vulnerable, I can give whatever I have to nourish other people, socially, emotionally, in every way possible. I think that's a very powerful perspective, and talked about Jesus, who demonstrated the true, true meaning of sacrifice and genuine kindness and love. So, so how did you decide to make a transition from being a teacher and to a different occupation?
Wow. Um, some people intentionally make those transitions. They go back to school, they take some courses, they get the training necessary, and they know exactly where they're going to go in life. I had some ideas, but I didn't know exactly how. When I was a teacher in Korea, I had a wonderful time there. And yes, I was sending out resumes. I was sending out resumes for Bible teaching, chaplain, being a pastor. Um, so I was looking for those things. I looked for opportunities. But honestly, I was doing that for about 5 years and nothing was happening. And I was starting to get a little hopeless. I was starting to feel that way, right? I was like, this is a long run. 5 years, man, it's a long time. Um, and I mean, I just started sending out my resumes all over the world. I mean, seriously. I mean, England, Australia, Africa. I started looking in Turkey, Cyprus, and then I started looking at Alaska. I looked all over the place.
That's crazy.
My family died. And sometimes when you're desperate, sometimes it allows you to open up more doors. When you're not desperate, you start getting a little picky. So I started getting desperate, like, you know what? I think this is really what I want to do. And so I can't limit myself by just only applying in certain locations, certain countries, right? So if you're passionate for doing something, you just got to do it, no matter where the opportunity goes, leads, or takes you, should I say. And so I was looking, nothing came. And then just one day I got a phone call from some leaders in Canada who I had not even sent my resume out to. And they said, hey, would you be interested in being our youth pastor? It's a longer story, but essentially it just started with one contact with one member of that church who who was a student at MU University for like a couple years before this time. And we had met each other just a couple times. And he thought about me. He was in Canada. I was still in Korea. He thought about this. Let me contact Moses. And that started something where I got an invitation to come. And my wife and I, we thought about it, prayed about it. We thought about our family. Would it be the best move for our family to move Korea to Canada? Would it be best for us to move from 2 full-time jobs to 1 part-time job? Would it be best for us to leave our family up in Korea to move to Canada, where we had some family was not very close? We had to like kind of look at the pros and cons, right? And after considering those things carefully, we believed that it was the best move for us. And so we made the transition, move from Korea as English teachers to come here to Canada, and there I worked. Here I worked as a youth pastor for a couple of years.
Wow. So while you were teaching, you were constantly job seeking, and then you landed on a youth pastor's job, and you said that was a part-time job. Um, so you initially came here to figure out about your future life, and I guess you did figure out something here, and then you were ready to move on to the next step. What do you think triggered you to uh, apply for different jobs instead of staying here permanently, as many people do? Some people do.
Yes. What triggered it? Um, I guess when I think of the opportunities that were available for me as an English speaker who was not fluent in Korean, for one, it was limited in Korean. If I would have remained there as an English teacher, the opportunities still remain. But I knew within my heart that God had called me to something different at this time. And it was to full time reaching out to people, um, uh, ministering to them in a different way. mostly, I wouldn't say in a church context, but just sharing with them the joy that I've had in God, and trying to help point the way and give guidance to those around me.
Oh, I
And
see.
so one thing I did mention is that uh, after I left Korea, I spent a couple years there. Then I went to the Philippines and I went to study there. Because after I came to Korea my first year, I knew by that time what the next step was for my life.
Wow.
So Korea was a good move. It was a good move. I did learn what I need to do. But when I returned back to Korea and worked there for another 5 years, that was a step back for me because even though I loved Korea and I had wonderful friends in Korea, family still in Korea, I was doing something I didn't feel like I was supposed to be doing. It wasn't English. I wasn't intrigued by English. I love the people, culture, but I didn't love English. So, so I just kept on looking for the opportunities. And that was a good time. I spent 5 next years in Korea as an English professor, and that was phenomenal, and it was exactly what I needed, even though I didn't feel that way all the time. But but essentially, I knew within my heart that there was a different plan that God had for me, and it was for pastoral ministry, youth ministry, um, caring for them that way. And so when the opportunity came, I jumped at it because it never died.
Wow.
Yeah.
So through the mission trip, you came to Korea, became an English teacher at a language institute, and then worked for 2 years and went to the Philippines and you did your Master's of Divinity.
That's right.
And then, I mean, that's pretty much the training to become a pastor or Bible teacher or any ministry capacity. And then you came back to the same job at a university level. So you became a professor at a university. And then you constantly applied for jobs and you landed on a pastoral ministry. So how was that transition? Because teaching is pretty much 9 to 5 jobs. You clock in and clock out, and I think pastoral job is very different. So how did you deal with that transition?
Wow. On the most part, it was a very good transition. At that time, I had a young daughter. My daughter is very young, about just about 1 year old, and so being the pastor at that time, a youth pastor, I was able to, I still had a schedule, but I was flexible in managing my own schedule. And so that offered me the opportunity to be able to spend time with my daughter for breakfast, do, excuse me, spend some reading time with her, um, be able to take her to daycare after that, prepare meals at home, and then also at the same time being able to do my due diligence in preparing messages, sharing and talking with young people, arranging activities, going out bowling or other activities, just calling people, seeing how they are, checking up on them. And so transitioning from being teacher to pastor, actually it worked out very, very well. Um, because I was able to work out my schedule and be flexible with it. Sometimes some people experience that it can be very demanding because you sometimes have people who are contacting you around the clock, like a health professional, like a nurse or doctor,
Yeah.
a firefighter. And so sometimes some of those experiences your time is never really your time. But I worked amongst a lot of young people who really didn't call me much. They didn't have so many like demanding needs, and so I had a lot more time with my family, and I focused on what I can do with them when I was with them. So that was kind of how it was. All in all, it was a very good, positive experience and transition for me.
Wow, that's
Hopefully, answered the question.
yeah, that's great because I also experienced the same thing after I quit my job as an English teacher at a middle school and high school level. I'm running my own after school programs at my own living room, and it's so much better being able to do my own devotion, exercise, manage my own time. Nobody's calling me all the time, and I don't have to answer their phone call all the time. I can just say my phone is off, and I don't carry my phone around, and I'll call you whenever I have time. So it just so relieved me from that stress to be on call, to be always expected to call them right away or text them right away. So I think a pastoral ministry also allowed you to be more flexible in your time, and it really strengthens your family dynamic.
It does, and it can. I will say that for some people, it can be the wedge that destroys the family too.
Yeah, yeah,
Because sometimes we make our jobs the all in all.
yeah, yeah.
And I would say this one thing I did forget is that one thing with the transition to becoming a pastor, uh, to a greater degree than it was for me than being a teacher, your thoughts are always on the people that you're working with and serving. So my mind is on them in the middle of the night. My mind is on them when I wake up in the morning. My mind is on them when I'm preparing dinner. My mind is on them when I'm with my daughter sometimes, and I have to just kind of disconnect sometimes to kind of focus on what I'm doing at the time. But when you're working for people and you're serving people and you get connected with them and you get to know their lives a little bit, it's very hard to not think about them and not be concerned when you know that they're going through certain things. They become almost like family to you.
Wow.
And so, even though I haven't worked at church for some years now, I still keep in touch with some of them. And even though some of them who I have not been in touch with, or they haven't been in touch with me, they still come to my mind. I still think about it. Even one person I had a dream with, one person was in my dream just last night, right? Um, that was a couple years that I stopped working there. So whenever you get really close to people and you really care, get to know about their lives a lot more, um, they're on your mind a lot more. So that's different though. And some people take that same mentality with whatever work they do. But definitely with pastoring, you don't clock on and clock off with thinking about people and caring about people. It's always right.
Wow. So I guess you're really passionate about the people that you serve, and sometimes you have to, I guess, in order to focus on your family when you are with your family, you have to sometimes disconnect yourself with them so you can actually focus on your family, so you can have the good quality family time.
That's
So,
right.
wow. So, again, the same question. So, not every pastor, every Bible teacher is a good uh, people skilled person. From what I have observed, some people are very grandiose and very dynamic at the pulpit, but when they step down, some people are very shy, some people are very introvert, some people are very awkward even, and I did making friends with people, talking to strangers, helped you serve people as a pastor.
Absolutely. Again, it definitely ties in. Um, just like I said, it's like people who learn new languages. The easiest are those who already know languages already. You compare someone who only knows one language trying to learn a second language to compare it with someone who knows three languages trying to learn another language. Usually, the person that knows three languages is going to learn a lot faster and a lot better than the one that only knows one. And I would say the same is that the more people you know, and the more you know how to relate to people and understand yourself, because understanding others also means that you learn to understand yourself better. So, if the better we understand ourselves, the better we can relate to anyone else. We are not unnecessarily offensive, very proud. Uh, we're not like looking at our world as like the center of the universe. When I first went to Korea, I thought that America was kind of the center. Even though I traveled a lot for that time, I thought that everyone should cater to me because I'm an American. And you don't speak English? Of course you do speak English. And I had to go through this process like, no, I'm in their country. I'm American. No, no, no. It's not them having to learn to speak English, it's me learning to speak Korean.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So I had to go through some changes like that. I think many people do. I think many people look at life that way and everything circulates around itself. But the more we understand people, really understand other people, it causes us to think about ourselves differently. And that allows us to be able to communicate with others a lot more effectively and not to have so many biases or not to have many misconceptions or prejudices that are unnecessary that come to like rigid or to hinder us from having good relationships. And so being a pastor or whatever most jobs that people have or many jobs that people have, it requires people skills. And if you don't have it, you're going to suffer. But if you do have it, you can oftentimes thrive and make the work environment a lot more pleasant to be around too.
Wow. So you're pretty much doing exactly what you have always wanted to do while you were in Korea. So do you feel like you feel a lot more fulfilled when you're working?
I do. I do. Not 100% of the time. I do have my down days. I do have my days where I struggle, and I feel like I just really screwed up that day. I really, really messed up. I really did not connect like I could have or I should have.
Yeah.
So I do have those days. I do have those days. Um, but oh, I feel so fulfilled. I feel so happy doing what I do now. Now I'm a school chaplain, and I love going to work every day. It's the perfect place where I can grow, where I can express my interest or my creativity. I work with incredible people, and I learn all the time there. And so it's the perfect mix of enjoyment, flexibility, and some challenge there too to stretch me a little bit more than I am. So I love it. I love it for sure.
Wow, the challenges there, you're learning every day, but you're definitely experience a lot more fulfillment because since you're doing exactly what you have always wanted to do. So you transitioned from full time job, to people's paycheck, and you said it was a part time as a youth pastor, and now you have
Yeah.
full time. So how did you juggle with the financial difference in terms of the money coming in? Even though my brother is a pastor and then everything is provided, he has a house, all the gas money, everything, utility bill, everything is taken care of. So how was that transition?
Oh, it was tough in the beginning. It was tough.
I bet.
I'll be straight honest. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, because I mean, my family and I we live in like one of the most expensive cities to live in too, right? Mortgage, everything is like super costly, and to move to a part-time pay a salary part-time paycheck was difficult. Um, Let me say this: my wife and I have learned, and we're still learning, but we especially learned at that time how to live with little,
Wow.
how to learn how to live with little, how to be satisfied with little. Now, there are times we missed the days when we both had full-time paychecks. That we didn't have to worry so much. We could kind of take our own vacation and be paid. We had paid vacation, but we learned how to live with little. We learned how to shop, where to shop, where the big bucks go, where not to go. Um, I mean, very, very important, right? We learn how to make our own food, certainly. Instead of going out and buying a lot of milk, we learn how to buy our own, like, get our own milk. And then get a good blender, we make our own nut milk, you know? We learn how to make our own cereal, you know? We learn how to go to bulk stores where we can buy things in large quantity as to save money, buy things large quantity, things that we're going to be using continuously. We save money that way. So we have learned how to save and learn how to work within our budget.
Wow.
It's not easy, but that has been another gift in disguise.
Wow.
Yeah, yes. But eventually, I had that part-time job for 1 year, and then my wife was able to get a little job maybe several months after we moved here, and that worked out. But as soon as we were expecting our second child. But this time, we were not going to be a family of four, and she would be able to work and pregnant. So now what do I do? But all things work well the way they should, and I got the other opportunity job to become a part-time chaplain, and so now I had two part-time jobs, and it came at the right time financially speaking, and I got lots of fulfillment with it, and eventually that part-time chaplain job turned into a full-time chaplain job 3 years later.
Wow.
Yeah.
So everything has been connected from the part time youth pastor, part time chaplain, and now full time chaplain.
Yes, correct.
Wow.
Correct.
Is that what most uh, pastors go through? First part time, and then they test you over your probation, and then they move you up. Is that how it works?
Well, many of them they will be, I guess you could say, um, employed by a conference, like in our church.
Okay.
At least in Seventh Adventist Church, they're employed by the conference, like a leadership, a body of leadership there. And then once they're employed, they're already part of the. They're an employee, full time employee.
Okay.
They're full time working, but as they work for a long period of time, and then the leadership sees that these people are definitely uh, working well with people, they're growing the church, and they're helping people deal with their challenges. People are satisfied with their leadership, their spiritual leadership. Then at that time they are promoted from that to
Oh.
become an ordained pastor, ordained minister.
Oh, I see.
And so that's generally how it goes. Some people are employed by a local church. A church will contact and we would like you to work for us and serve. And that's kind of how I came here.
Okay.
And been working as a youth pastor. Um, but most people's story probably wouldn't quite be the same as mine, but my story isn't entirely unique. There are other people who do have similar stories.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. But I mean, there's no such thing as like getting involved in ministry part time. There's no such
Yeah.
thing as getting in ministry part time, even though you're a full time. You can be a full time minister, but you can work like a part timer. And even though you're
Yeah.
paid like a part timer, but you can be more involved or you're as dedicated as any full time workers. So, um, so how are you able to um, deal with that mindset? Because when I was a missionary for the university campus, nobody told me this is what you need to do, this is where you're failing, this is what you need to change. It was pretty much campus ministry abandonment program. That's how I went through. Okay, here is a house, these are your ministry friends, here is the food, do whatever you want with this circumstance, and make friends with people on campus, and you have 1 year. And we heard one time feedback at the end of the program. There was no supervision very closely. It was just very. I felt like one of the cattle just roaming around, grazing, and then doing my own thing. And after that, there was a feedback. And I don't know how much feedback or how much supervision you had, and how much accountability that you had as somebody that is involved in ministry. How did that work for you?
Wow. Wow. Uh, you shared a lot of good things there. It's a really important question. You're right. There's no such thing as part time ministry. How do you like love people part time? Work for people part time. Yeah, it's just the name, but it's true. It doesn't happen. And so it was hard for me. It was hard to juggle my heart that I really wanted to give so much to you, pastoring, to these young people over here, and at the same time give my time and my interest to this school with several hundred students at, right? But it was difficult, and I longed for the day when I could do one of the two. Because I never felt fully satisfied. I always finished it feeling like there was so much more I wanted to do, but I couldn't because I just didn't have the time to do it. I mean, to be honest with myself, and I mean, one thing I have to acknowledge is that we have limitations. This is something we can't do, and I can't kill myself to do those things. I have to take care of my body and health too. So yeah, so it's definitely difficult. Um, but then I want to make sure there's another point that you mentioned there, another question should I say that you mentioned there besides the part time uh, that I think is very important. And maybe you can help me out with that second part of the question again.
um, so for example, if you're a teacher, there is a result. Okay, this student is not learning. Oh, their score is this way. But you cannot measure church members or you cannot measure the ministry by numbers, even though they do measure by tithe and offering, number of baptisms, attendance. So on one side, people say, "Wow, you're doing a great job," but based on the statistics or based on people's verbal approval or verbal evaluation or your promotion or demotion. But ministry is something that you cannot always measure. Ministry is something that can't be always um, very closely like supervised as you would run a company. Oh, this should be the result. You need to do more. So how do you deal with that invisible but as significant aspect of um, dynamic um, but solemn aspect of ministry?
Yes, yes, true, true. There are times when I felt like I wish I had more accountability. Um,
Yeah.
Someone to look over me and just kind of coach me, walk me along the way. And sometimes in ministry and other jobs that we have, sometimes we started out um, and we don't have that person like a mentor or a coach.
Yeah.
And it does make it hard. We have to try to find our own way, right? And so I had a little bit of that, but at most part I felt like I was starting out kind of like on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but how do you measure results, right? How do you measure what you're doing and that you're making some impact, that you're doing what you need to do? Um, since you can't see someone ahead in front of you who've done it, sometimes it's difficult. So I look at it this way. I ask myself, okay, what am I doing? Okay, in this case, I was a pastor, youth pastor. Okay, so biblically speaking, what does the Bible say about the role of a pastor? What is the pastor to do? What is the heart of a pastor? Are they simply just to preach or speak? Are they simply supposed to be a caddy person, they call it chaperone? They just were chaperone, just taking care of the kids, or driving the kids around. Everyone has different expectations of what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
It's like we telling the doctor, no, doctor, you should be doing this stuff. You should be a lawyer. You should be in the hospital. You should be in the court system. You should be arguing this. You should be doing research on that. But we don't argue with the doctors like that usually.
Yeah.
But a doctor has to know what a doctor's supposed to do.
Yeah.
What his job is. So I had to try to find out, okay, well, what does it mean to really be a pastor? And what examples do I see of a pastor in the Bible? And what are some of the good pastors that I have seen that follow these principles? And I need to do it. And sometimes being a good pastor means that you will be highly unpopular. Sometimes being a good pastor means that you will not be liked. Just as a doctor may not be liked when he sticks the needle inside of a child's body. The child's screaming and crying like, why are you doing this? Why are you giving me this pain? No! The child has no idea, but the doctor knows that this is necessary for your health and well-being.
Yeah.
I have to know that there's certain things that I need to say, there's certain things I need to do that might rub off wrong with you, but it's necessary. And I have to do it because I have to be true to myself. And if I really care about that person, I have to be true to them. That's not easy. And that's not easy for me only. I have to go out of my comfort zone to do so. But we have to do that. And so I think understanding my role, my identity, and that, or should I say my role, I think that's very important. Also, I listen to a lot of videos, training videos that I've been checking out every Asia. That would be like a further tool of education for me. Ways in which I can learn to be innovative, creative, dynamic, but growing intellectually, and just be more Christ-like. I tried to go back to those tools, those seminars, workshops, those presentations, because I need to learn. And I'm not satisfied with where I am. I'm not satisfied with who I am as a professional. Um, but I do believe that I can grow and I can get better. So that's the game goes to being a lifelong learner. And when I'm continually learning, I'm continually growing, I'm continually happier with what I'm doing because I can make a more meaningful impact in people's lives. So that's kind of my answer. Um, I've had ups and downs in the work that I do as a pastor, even as a teacher. But I do appreciate. I try to focus on the people who I have been able to make impact on. Those people who do come back, those people who do write messages, those people who do stay. I appreciate the things you share, the things that you've done. I appreciate who you are. I really miss you. Or when the tears start to fall down the face because I know that our hearts are connected. That tells me that I'm able to reach out and we're able to connect with some people. There may not be everyone, and I've just learned this, Jill. I've learned that Moses cannot connect with everyone. That was hard for me to accept, and sometimes I still have to deal with that. But I will not be able to connect with everyone. Everyone will not like me. There's gonna be some people that like my wife more than like me. There's gonna be some people that like my sister more than like me. There's going to be some people who like someone else, and I'm not going to be everything for everyone. I have to accept that, and that's okay. But there are people who you will connect with. There are people who you can make a life change impact in life, and focus on those people, and focus on to be thankful for the ways in which we've been able to contribute to their lives for their good. That's what I try to focus on. At the same time, wondering if there's a better way in which I can reach out to people I can't connect with as well. Is there some way I can impact their lives in a special way?
Wow.
And yeah, hopefully that answers the question. That's kind of the way I look at what I do and trying to find meaning when someone else may not be looking over my shoulders and telling me if I'm doing things right all the time.
Mm. Wow. It sounds like it requires a lot of courage. It sounds like it requires a lot of God and humility and uh, connection with heaven and connecting with people, but being okay with not being liked sometimes. I mean, that's what leaders go through. Leaders are very visible, so people are going to say all kinds of things all the time because people think leaders are the problems when anything goes bad. So I think that's what happens. you know, in Korea, there is a saying that the more you hear bad things, the longer that you're gonna live. So, so, yeah, we have those like grandmas and grandpas that say a lot of curse words, and people say, yeah, people hate those grandmas and grandpas, and that's why they live so long, and it's kind of funny to say stuff like that, but anyway, so so what's the difference between being a pastor and a chaplain? Because to me, it sounds the same. Pastor for the local congregation, pastor for the school. So what were the differences?
All right. So a pastor is someone who works in the church context for people who are already believers.
Oh.
All right. So in the sense of being a Christian, a pastor is someone who works and ministers to people who already are Christians, who made a decision to follow Jesus and to believe certain beliefs according to that the church believed. And of course, they hold meetings, they do special things in order to try to, I guess, I don't want to say proselytize, make disciples, and share their faith. But predominantly, their place of work is with other people who believe likewise. They are believers as well. A chaplain, whether it be a school chaplain, a hospital chaplain, a military chaplain, a community chaplain that serves police department, fire department, etc. Chaplains, they work in different contexts. They don't work among people who are already believers. Their job is not to make necessarily, their job is not to baptize people. They share their faith, but most importantly, chaplains, they meet people where they already are and support people where they are to help them to get to the place where they need to get to. So a chaplain can work among Hindu, Buddhist, Muslim, Sikhs. We have all of them here. And it may be a Jewish person, but they respect people for their religious beliefs, their background. Their job is not to make them different or make them like themselves, but they acknowledge that everyone has a core issues, core challenges, problems, if I might say, in human nature. And the chaplain's there to step by their side and be that support. Many chaplains are there to provide a listening ear. When people just want to just share their problems and they need to go to someone who's safe. They can't go to their boss or a supervisor, but they can go to chaplain and they can receive counseling. Many chaplains are qualified counselors or trained counselors. Many people, when they experience grief, a death in the family, it may be, I'm a school chaplain, so if there's someone who experiences the death of a grandma, a grandparent, or a parent, they may come and speak with me about that. The same way with the military, they experience grief all the time in hospitals. You might find chaplains dealing with relationship counseling, depending on which audience you work with. So pretty much what I'm saying is that chaplain works with a unique group of people, a unique context, and based upon the needs of that group of people, the chaplain tries to specialize him or herself to meet those needs of that person, to restore them and to help them to live wholesome, happy lives. And so that's essentially my job.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
Pretty cool. But yeah, it is a little
because
But
recently,
many chaplains,
yeah, go
many
ahead, go ahead.
chaplains are pastors.
Yeah.
Many chaplains are pastors, but all pastors are not chaplains. And
Mm,
so chaplains is a specific,
mm,
specialized ministry to certain groups of people.
wow.
And pastors, their focus is on believers in the local church context.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So, do you think you fit in better at a chaplain setting as a chaplain in that in the school setting, or how do you see yourself? Or probably you're gonna say, I'm gonna go whatever God calls me.
You know me very well. Yes, yes, yes. I should say that too, because it might be someone watching the video saying, "Oh, that's what he said, but he's not interested in other kinds of." But yeah, yeah, I'm open to God. I see certain strengths of mine being able to. I see some of my strengths being more catered to chaplaincy, and I see some other strengths of mine that more catered to pastoring in a local church.
Okay.
And again, I say this humbly because like there's so much I am in need of learning and growing in different ways. Um, but I believe that God has given me the ability to preach. Um, and I'm a little shy, nervous to speak sometimes. Yeah, I am. But I see God working through me during that time. And pastors do preach a lot. I do see a need to be more creative when it comes to local church ministry and as a leader. And I do have a little bit more creativity. Think a little bit more out the box. Things don't always have to be the same way all the time. Um, so I do see that there's some good things that can come out of my work in the church. People skills go through everything that you do. The chaplaincy component, though, I feel like I work better one-on-one with people, small groups one-on-one, when it comes to listening, honing in to people's, what people have to say, what their concerns are in counseling. I feel like I have the gift of encouragement in counseling, and I get a chance to do that all the time as a chaplain. Also, as a chaplain, especially as a school chaplain, I work with young people, and I just love working with young people, and I see such a great need uh, for adults to step closer to the young people these days. I think that we need to bridge that gap between different generations more and more and bring us together. And so I see certain strengths in mine in both areas. Um, so this is where I am right now. So I'm giving all my attention to this. But if, God opens up another door for the pastoring, local church, then I'll be happy. I'll go in that direction too. It's just about, knowing exactly where I need to be.
Wow, that's crazy because when you look at the Bible, Paul was called to go to the Gentiles, those people that were not Jewish, and Jewish people didn't think he was fitting into the model that has been traditionally acceptable, and they were wondering what is it doing over there. But he launched a whole different ministry that made a global impact. And these days, I've been hanging out with a lot of non-church people. I used to not do that, and I think I've been missing out the meat when I was just sticking to the church group. I'm hanging a lot with my neighbors and talking to them, making friends with them, and I found myself finding a lot of fulfillment and joy in talking about different things. And faith is one of the things that I get to share with them. They share their story, I share my story. So I was able to broaden my perspective. I was able to expand my horizon. So and you specifically mentioned that pastor's job is to cater to the believers there. And I teach my pastor friend, and I share this with my friend, and he thought whatever I said was very provocative or very revolutionary or crazy, because it came from the testimonies for the church, and he says that because I believe the way church members or churches evaluate pastors sometimes come from their selfish desires to keep the pastors for themselves, because they want to be comfortable. They want the pastor to come and preach every Saturday or Sundays so they can be fulfilled. And the model that she was suggesting was members working 6 days a week, winning people for God, and then they share their experience on the weekend when they gather, and pastors need to train them to do so, and that's the model that is not popular anywhere. And when you go to any churches, it's usually pastors preaching every Saturday or Sundays. So, do you think you're gonna see that phenomenal growth or completely different dynamic if we adopt that model, or do you also think, as my friend said, that's too ideal?
Yeah, yeah. All right. And so, just to repeat what you said, make sure I got you right. Well, is that you know, the model that you said you just shared based on your reading is that pastor's job is to equip
Yeah, exactly.
members
Yeah.
be able to be more effective in doing what they are gifted and talented in to reach other people.
Exactly.
And have de-emphasized too much focus on the local pastor doing everything in the church.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I completely agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
I think wonderful things happen when people get a chance to work. They take personal ownership.
Yeah.
That's important.
Yeah.
People need to take ownership. People will have very little solid faith in God or whatever they believe. They have very little solid faith if they don't have the chance to be able to put it back and exercise it by knowing how to share it with someone else. So when you start to share with other people, that when you're challenging yourself, when your beliefs are challenged, and what you believe becomes more refined and it becomes more clear, it becomes your own. People find joy when they can do something. They can do something well, and they can see how what they do makes a meaningful impact in people's lives. I think a very terrible life is a life lived for selfish pursuits. When you live your last and you're about to die, and you look at who you made an impact on, and you're in your deathbed in the hospital, and no one is there to say, "We love you, we miss you, goodbye." To die alone, that's a terrible thing. But essentially, a lot of people are, that's what a lot of people's lives are like, because they are not reaching out beyond themselves. So we're just like giving, consuming. We're not thinking about what we can give. So I believe that everyone has something to offer. It might be small in our estimate, but everyone has something to offer. And if we think about what we have to offer, and we're able to train ourselves, develop it, or we have a leader that comes by our side and be able to help us to develop that gift a lot more, see how we can use it to benefit others in loving, tangible way. Oh yeah, that's gonna definitely build up that person's life. That's gonna change that person's life forever. And then when that leader leaves that church will never be the same because all the people he has reached out to will then continue to make the church a better place for everyone that's there and those who come. So what you're saying, I completely 100% agree. That's our job. It's not the easiest. It requires a lot more work and time, but it's the best way.
Because the church that I used to go to before the university church right here was a place that, I mean, you've been to that English camp that I invited you for, and that place has their own lifestyle center, and the elder now is running his own church in his own lifestyle center now. But the ideal that I saw there was a bunch of different people sharing their stories. Fridays, Saturdays, Tuesdays. It was unbelievable. And it wasn't just one elder or one pastor regurgitating the same things over and over. It was different people. This is my story. I was in the dark. I'm in the light. I got sick. I got healed. Almost divorced. I got back together. I hated him. I forgave him. It was unbelievable dynamic that I saw, and I noticed not all the churches are like that. And most people go to churches as if they would go to a theater. They come, they sit back, enjoy the movie, clock out, they're out. So I got very, very disappointed in most churches where people are expected to enjoy a good quality sermon when their job is to simply report on what happened to their lives. So more people are inspired by everybody else's stories, not one person's story. And I believe the expectation was set up by people, not by pastors. So I was wondering if you had also experienced the same kind of um, discrepancy or same kind of gap, and what's your vision as a former pastor and a chaplain for the school and for the church?
Wow. But one of my visions is that I can leave a legacy of seeing and helping to prepare a lot more young people to have fire to share their love, share their faith with others, and not to be dependent upon the local leader or a parent alone. So for one to be on fire and excited about what they believe, know what they believe, to test what they believe, and to really be solid with that, right?
Mm.
Um, that's really important to have a personal faith for yourself.
Mm.
Um, so that's one thing. That's one thing that be my vision. Um, wow. You know what? That I think I actually have two visions. To tell you the truth,
Mm-hmm.
it's one that people can have this contagious love and passion for Jesus Christ and His Word,
Mm.
and that they're getting to know Him better by their own study of God's Word, and they're loving Him, that they're radiant with His light, His love to those around them, and secondly, that they discover what it is that they're good at, what is their gift or talent in, and they're already they're starting to do
Mm.
something for the cause of God to uplift and to better humanity.
Mm.
Those two things. And that goes back to the summary of the Ten Commandments.
Wow.
To love God with your whole heart,
Mm.
with everything you are, and secondly, to love your neighbor the
Yeah.
way that you love yourself. And if my legacy can be able to ignite and pass that on to other young people, then I feel very satisfied with that.
Wow. It sounds like you're talking about a very good factory where a bunch of products that are living and precious products that are capable of loving one another so that this world can be less painful, less nasty. And I mean, what's the point of having more nasty church members when heaven is a place where there is no
That's
bitterness
right.
and no jealousy? So I think aside from the religion, aside from the like those church people, the kind of like exclusive aspect, you go to church, I don't go to church. I think the power of love is, as you said, is very contagious, and you can heal people, you can really empower people, as you said, and yeah, it really helps people have meaning and empowerment, because wherever you go, you can share it, and you are growing as a person, you are uh, impacting other people's lives. So, and when you do more of that, um, you're not gonna cheat on people, you're not gonna lie to people, you're not gonna hurt them, they're not going to become terrorists. So I think, um, even though you can't say, wow, this pastor is making this much money, or this chaplain is making this much money, you cannot measure that by money. You can only heaven will tell what actually happened through our ministries, and it's pretty much something that we can measure, um, from a secular perspective. So my last question: do you have any students or individuals that uh, made you think that, wow, this is why I left Korea and came all the way here, or wow, this is why I came to Canada, my wife's country, away from my homeland.
Well, I do miss the kimbap and
Yeah,
bibimbap.
yeah.
I do miss Korean food a lot more.
For sure, for
Uh,
sure.
but yeah, there've been some people. There definitely been some people that I've met, um, and that I've been able to work with, that I feel like, yeah, yeah, this is the reason why I'm here. And it's not just been the people that I've been able to touch by God's help, but it's also the way that I've been able to grow too, and how my life has been touched by some of the same people. When I got ready to leave the youth pastoral job and our calling there, um, had one of the young men, you know, in my context growing up, man never cried. I was always taught that a man never cried. Now, for those who are watching this video, this interview, man can cry, and it's okay to cry, and it's probably healthier. I'm not encouraging us being crybaby, but it's okay to cry. And this young man, like the university age guy, when I got ready to leave, he knew it was my time finished. He broke out in tears, and we embraced, we hugged each other. It kind of sad me leaving. I know that we had bonded, we had connected. I saw him grow close to God. I saw him have more purpose and more satisfaction in serving God and seeing what God's plans were like. And he's gone through some health issues in his life too, recently at that time. But I tell you, a lot of other young people who are going through the challenges he has had and having to give up and lose a lot of time and different things like he had, a lot of people get really, really depressed, discouraged, or feel hopeless. But not so with this guy. Uh, he has a solid relationship with God. He knows that God is behind him in everything that happens, even in his disappointment. And for me seeing him in his life, his testimony, I'm touched. I'm encouraged. And I'm so happy that I could have played a small part of his big life. And I can't wait to see the greater things that he's going to do as he grows older and he continues to study and seeks to go out and serve other people. Um, yes, I think about people. People that random person I meet in the library who's crying and I talk with her and just to see her tears just kind of dry up and see that she knows somebody cares, a stranger. I still think about the kids I get a chance to see at school, and I may not be able to connect with them all, but I think about those random kids here and there who come to our office and they just are happy to be there, and their days just looking brighter to be there. Uh, it makes me happy just to know that I can be a part of their life. Um, and because in the same way I've been a part of their life. The same way, there are other people who came into my life who helped me when I felt broken, when I had a need, and I needed them so badly. And I appreciated those people who stepped into my life, stepped in the gap that was broken in me. And so, my encouragement to everyone here who's listening is that, hey, there's broken people everywhere in the world. Who they don't necessarily write, they don't have on a shirt that says I'm broken, but they're broken. And people need someone to come close to them, to be able to welcome them, to greet them, to get to know them, to try to understand them, to care enough for them and about them. They might be able to speak the truth, but be a friend, and to share with them good things and good news that they have. And so, yes, I'm happy that I'm here in Canada. I'm grateful for the years I spent in Korea, and I'm also very grateful for the years I've been here in Canada. And I have no doubt that this is where I need to be right now in my life.
Wow, that's great. You sound like a happy, fulfilled person, and it's very encouraging to hear from you all the time. So, even though I said it was the last question, I have one more question. Sorry.
Yeah.
So you were constantly talking about the broken, sorrowful, disappointed people. Was there a time in the past when you were not broken? I mean, was there a time when you were broken and then somebody helped you along the way? When were you always good? Were you always a good kid? Did you experience any tradition?
No. I had my challenges too. And to be honest with you, as you asked that question, I'm thinking to myself, like, sometimes I still feel a little broken. And I feel like God is continuously filling my cup up, continually taking care of me. There's times that I notice that brokenness. Um, but there was a time in my life where I became very keenly aware of my brokenness, and that was uh, sometime after the divorce of my parents. My parents divorced when I was a little boy, and especially I think it was when I was seriously dating a girl back in school, and we're talking about marriage and everything. I had a hard time understanding what a man really was. what a Christian man really is. And I didn't have that relationship with my dad like I wanted to be able to talk about those things. And I also connected with times I saw boys, fathers and sons playing together, and I realized that I didn't really have that. And I was broken, there's still times I'm challenged with the whole idea of, wanting to rekindle certain relationships that are not what they're supposed to be. But I learned that there's something, and I'm still learning this too, but I learned that some things we cannot change. We cannot do away with the past and our history, but we can accept some things as they are and embrace the things that we can change.
Wow.
Moving one step forward a day, just one step. And so, and also just acknowledging that, hey, even though sometimes we're broken, we don't feel complete, that ultimately it's God who completes us. It's God who fills us. I can't say that enough. And it was God who I prayed to, asking Him for putting a good Christian man in my life to show me what it means to be a Christian man, not a Hollywood man, but a Christian man. Because Hollywood tells a man what they're supposed to be. Social media tells men what they're supposed to be, what they're not supposed to be. And we're also confused because Hollywood is always changing. But I wanted something that was standard, something that was solid, something that didn't change for me. And that's where I'm coming from. And so I prayed for those men. And God put about 3 good Christian men in my life. A professor, retired teacher, church elder, and He just put people in my life. And I'm in completely debt to them for them just going out the way of just being a wonderful mentor to me. So yes, there have been times I've been broken. That's just one. There's been many times. But thankfully, someone keeps filling me up.
Wow.
And He wants me to fill other people up. And that's probably one other thing. Is that when we speak out to help other people and support other people, though we're not trying to do it for this reason, when we help other people out, it also is another way that I think our cup can build up too. Our brokenness is taken care of more and more that way too.
Wow. You went through something similar because my father passed away from cancer when I was in high school, and I always felt abandoned and just forsaken whenever I saw a father and son interacting with each other. And you also mentioned that, and every time I saw that, I was like, where's my father? He's gone. So that brokenness was something that already happened, as you said. I couldn't fix the past, but you still have the present and future in your hands to fix with the help of others around you and somebody up there watching over us. So you said that there were a professor and a teacher and a pastor, you said?
And a local elder, church elder.
Elder, okay. Yeah. Wow. It's great to have the community, because I also had the community that fulfilled the role of my father. And it wasn't just one person, it was many people. So it's good to have that community in the place of my missing father. So wow, thank you for answering all my questions that I asked you without telling you in advance, and you answered just fine.
Well, thank you for having me, J.Y. I appreciate it. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, I was very thankful to hear all your stories, and I always wondered what it would be like to be a pastor and a chaplain, and what kind of brokenness Moses went through, and you answered all my questions. So I am very happy to be able to catch up with you like this, and ask you a lot of questions, and everything got answered. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Again, my pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Right. I'll share the video with you, and then I'll share it with my friends.
All right.
And I'm pretty sure it'll bless many people.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Good to know. We'll be in touch again.
Sure. Thank you, Moses.
All right. Thank you, J.Y. Have a nice one.
Have a good day.
Thank you too.
Bye-bye.